Well, no April Fool's joke. We've got a snowstorm for much of Minnesota, the northern half at least. While the Twin Cities will be spared the heaviest snow, we are going to be looking at a sloppy mess. And then spring is back next week. But first, we got to get through the storm. We break it all down. So here we are, April 1st. It was a very active March, of course, way more active than the winter pattern was. And so far, at least, April starting off where March left off. We have another sloppy storm just 48 hours after the last one. And it is going to bring a lot of moisture, most importantly to the state. We are still in a drought for the majority of Minnesota, so any moisture is welcome, even if it is a little bit annoying. The snow is really spreading pretty quickly here across much of the state right now. A lot of what you're seeing, though, is not quite reaching the ground just yet. The radar returns, remember, hit things at an angle, so we see what's happening aloft first. But looking at some of the observations right now, while it is dry in the Twin Cities, we're seeing kind of a mixed picture already playing out to the west. Most places are reporting snow. Those are the two purplish stars you see being reported across much of west central and southwestern Minnesota. But there are some spots reporting rain. That is out around Hutchinson and just west of the Twin Cities. And as this moves into the metro, we probably are going to see a mix of rain and snow as temperatures are going up. 38 here, 41 in Red Wing as of lunchtime. So that's what's going on with the moisture right now. If we look at the models, put on the high resolution rapid refresh model, because in case you're wondering why I use that a lot, it's in a lot of meteorologists because it updates every hour. Doesn't mean it's more accurate necessarily. It is pretty accurate though, but it is incorporating new data every hour, so that does make it a little bit more reliable once things are in play already. So this is what it has as of noon. And matches pretty well with what we're seeing with observations. Snow off to the west, and then kind of rain on the eastern edge. And notice what happens as the moisture continues to fill in and expand. This is 4 p.m., 5 p.m. We're looking at rain in the metro, at least on this model, in the evening. But I want you to see what happens pretty quickly here. This is 7 p.m., 8, 9, 10, 11. We get a shot of heavy snow here, so that rain will quickly turn over to snow. We call this dynamic cooling, which means there's just so much vertical lift that you can actually cool the column of air to the point where it turns over to snow. And this coincides with, of course, reaching nightfall when temperatures are dropping anyway. It's just easier to get snow to accumulate at night this time of year because I've said this before, but even in a cloudy day, you're getting solar insolation. The only time you're not getting sunlight is if it's pitch dark, which just doesn't happen, except at night. And this time of year, that sun is just way stronger than it is in the middle of winter. So that's why, especially any paved surfaces, we saw this on Sunday, you're not going to get anything to stick because even a tenth of that sunlight getting through the clouds is enough to keep those roadways warm. So for the Twin Cities, this whole system, really, our best window of snowfall is going to be that evening shot, between 8 and probably 11 p.m. Quick shot of heavy snow could give us a quick inch or two of slush. And then that area moves north and just continues to dump snow on northern Minnesota. And then you can see this is 3 a.m., 4 a.m. We turn back to rain here in the Twin Cities in southern Minnesota as warmer air gets drawn into the system. So that's what's going to be happening as far as that goes. Because right now these are looking at temperatures about 4,000 feet up. It's the 850 millibar pressure level. We measure height by pressure generally in meteorology because the height at which certain air pressures and temperatures occur changes depending upon the air mass, to make a long story short. And you can see that this is all sub-zero air aloft. This is in degrees Celsius, so all the grayish green is sub-zero air. But as we head into the overnight hours, this system is drawing in warmer air. So this is 2 a.m., 3 a.m. That's why you see that turnover to rain again, because across southern Minnesota, all these temperatures are above freezing, anywhere from 32 to 38 degrees Fahrenheit at 4,000 feet. So that means you're going to get rain because at that time, we'll put on the winds at that same height. We got strong south winds. I mean, this is pretty incredible. These winds at 4,000 feet above the ground are going to be 45 to 50 miles an hour out of the south. which is good for northern Minnesota where you stay cold enough to keep it snow. You're bringing in a warmer, more moist air mass to feed the system. But if you're too far south, like we will be, it also means you're going to turn back over to rain. So that's what's going on with that. So 4 a.m., we'll backtrack a couple model runs because it only goes past 18 hours every 6 hours in the model run. So every hour run is at least 18 hours, but for a 48-hour forecast, it only does that every 6 hours. So 4 a.m. rain here in the Twin Cities, and we'll get kind of on and off rain through the day tomorrow because we're going to get pretty warm air in here. But you can see all the while, northern Minnesota just gets waves of dark blue. That's heavy snow. And then it all wraps up by early Thursday. This is 6 a.m. Thursday morning, just a few snow showers left to the north. And the reason, not just aloft, but during the day tomorrow here across southern Minnesota, I'm going to put on surface temperatures forecast from the model. We start the day in the upper 30s. So whatever we get overnight, by the morning, the roads should probably be just wet, maybe a little slushy in spots. But with temperatures going up overnight, that will melt things on the roadways pretty quickly. And look what happens during the day. We warm up into the upper 40s, even maybe 50. Now, this model does tend to overdo temperatures a few degrees, but you get the idea. Look at southeastern Minnesota. In fact, Rochester, well into the 50s, maybe even hitting 60 out towards La Crosse, while northern Minnesota, you can see, stays in the 30s. So low 30s northern Minnesota, 40s here in the Twin Cities, 50s in southeastern Minnesota. That is why tomorrow will be mostly rain for us. So as far as this model goes, is with total snowfall, it's going high up along the North Shore, especially, which is where we expect it to be the heaviest. Now, we're looking at a value here that doesn't take into account compacting and melting. I've talked about this the last few storms, that especially now that we're in April, the ground is warm. During the day, there is sunlight getting through, so it's not the same ratios as the middle of winter. We talk about a 10-to-1 or 15-to-1 ratio. Well, it can be 5-to-1 in these heavy, wet, sloppy systems. So that's what we're looking at there. But the HRRR gives us 2 inches of snow in the Twin Cities, pretty widespread across the metro. So that's why we're not in a winter storm warning or a winter weather advisory. Winter storm criteria is 6 inches or more, which St. Cloud maybe gets. And Brainerd, certainly Bemidji, and then up the North Shore, Duluth. But when we put on that value that accounts for melting and compacting, positive snow depth change, you get a lot different picture. Then we're looking at maybe an inch in the Twin Cities. But you still get these 8, 9, 10-inch amounts, kind of a bullseye around the Bemidji area, and then a secondary bullseye from Duluth up the North Shore of anywhere from 8 to 13, 14 inches of snow. So that's that model. The official Weather Service forecast matches pretty close. There's not a whole lot of disparity here. The Weather Service forecast does expand the heavier snow a little bit than the high resolution rapid refresh model. And remember that the Weather Service forecast takes into account all the different models and actual humans looking at it. And I'm in pretty good agreement with the Weather Service. I think this looks about like what we will see across the state. So if you are in Brainerd, Bemidji, International Falls, Duluth, Grand Marais, you're in for a very heavy snow. But note here that while the HRRR model gave St. Cloud 6-7 inches of snow, the Weather Service forecast is 3 inches. And if we look at the weighted average of the models, which is always a good reference point too, this is partly why the Weather Service forecast is lower, because this takes into account all the models and weights them. And you get still higher than the Weather Service forecast, 3, 4, 5 inches in St. Cloud, but not the specific value that one model gave in particular. And Twin Cities, again, about 2 inches of snow. But most of this is going to happen in a pretty quick period. So I'm going to break it down into 12-hour periods because the storm is multifaceted in terms of precipitation type and the timing. So through the next 12 hours, this takes us through 10 p.m., most of the snowfall accumulation is going to be in the central part of the state, probably in that 2, 3, 4 inch range, because again, during the day, it's harder to get to go. But as we head into the next 12-hour period, which would take us from 10 p.m. tonight to 10 a.m. tomorrow, note the shift. The bulk of the accumulations are more into north central Minnesota, and then the North Shore really gets going. In a 12-hour period, 6 to 9 inches of snow. So that's not quite 1 inch per hour snowfall rates, but pretty close. Very heavy snow. I would not advise traveling at all on the North Shore tonight into tomorrow. It's going to be very messy. And you can see in the weather, or in southern Minnesota, we really see almost nothing. And then during the day tomorrow into tomorrow night, this is 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. tomorrow. Nothing in the Twin Cities, southeastern Minnesota, because as we went through, we're just going to be way too warm. Northern Minnesota, though, continues with some heavy snow. So remember, it was 6 to 9 inches in the previous 12-hour period for the North Shore. Well, they're going to get another 6 to 9 inches in the next 12-hour period. And then places further north, Ely, International Falls gets in on the action more, 6 to 7 inches of snow during the day tomorrow. And we see almost nothing in southern Minnesota. As far as ice, this time doesn't look like a whole lot. The areas you're seeing lightly coated in pink are just a 10th or 100th, maybe a couple hundredths of an inch of ice from the model average. And mostly across central Minnesota, there's a brief window late tonight where those places that temperatures do dip below freezing could see a brief window of some light freezing rain. For the most part, though, this is going to be a divide between snow and rain across the southern part of the state. And here's the reason why. When we look at those temperatures tomorrow morning, 7 a.m., just before the sun's up, you can see St. Cloud still close to freezing, but yes, the central part of the state is right at that 30, 31, 32 mark. Twin Cities, though, 36 and above. A lot of moisture in this system, though. As it started out saying, we are in a drought still. And this is the liquid equivalent, breaking it down so we're not comparing apples and oranges, snow to water, but just water for everybody. And along the North Shore, we're talking 1 to 2 inches of water, liquid equivalent. But even in central Minnesota, and including the Twin Cities, inch to an inch and a half of water. And in the Twin Cities, remember, most of that it will be in the form of water. So we had about 1 3/4 inches of rain over the weekend, Saturday into Saturday night. Well, we're going to be in for maybe another one. So this is incredible compared to how just dry and quiet the winter was. So a lot of moisture that we definitely need. And then things are going to be quieter after that point. We're looking at much quieter weather. In fact, next week, spring is back. Thursday into next week, we really don't see any systems bringing us precipitation, and we should see sunshine. I think it'll still be pretty cloudy Thursday, and those temperatures are slightly below normal. Normal high now 51, so everything here in the 7-day is below normal, except for Friday. Should see some sunshine Friday, 54, but temporarily cooler for the weekend. And next week, I'm going to go out a little further because in case you want a little hope, this takes us out into the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, more sunshine and spring-like temperatures. We're going to be in the 60s by maybe even Tuesday, as early as Tuesday, but Wednesday, Thursday, Friday looks quite warm. And in fact, let's see if the American model is still doing it. It had us, into the 70s even by next weekend. So not this coming, but the 13th, Sunday the 13th, 75 degrees. One model run, nothing to set in stone yet, but all the models are hinting at quite the warm-up next week. 71 on the European model already maybe by Wednesday. Canadian model, not as warm, but you get the idea. We're looking at least 60s for mid to late week next week into next weekend. If not, maybe a 70-degree reading again. So back to the snowfall totals, just to give you that perspective. Again, the bulk of this snow is going to be across the northern half of the state, and especially the North Shore. And in the Twin Cities, most of ours is going to come in that window that I talked about this evening. So we'll back up here and show you. Remember, I showed that we get a little slushy rain snow mix here through 7 p.m. Probably not amounting to much because this isn't accounting for melting. But once we get that burst between about 7, 8 and 10, 11 p.m., that's when most of the snow comes. So you can see 2 inches of snow by midnight, and then that's it for us. There's nothing more adding up here. So it's going to be that brief window of heavy wet snow in the evening. Put the HER model back on so that you can see that. We see rain mixing with snow this afternoon, evening as that fills in. As far as timing, we could see some spotty rain, snow showers here early to mid-afternoon, but it looks as though most of anything steady is going to be later afternoon, so probably right towards the evening commute. But again, temperatures will be above freezing, and it might be mainly in the form of rain, but it could go back and forth between rain and snow because we're going to be really on that edge. But once it turns over here quickly, this is 8 o'clock, there's that burst of snow. That's when we get our quick couple of inches in the Twin Cities, and then it moves on, and then we're back to rain by the early morning hours. So that's the way it's looking. Another sloppy spring storm system bringing needed moisture, though. Yes, we are in drought. And then we're in for a nice stretch of, it could be a 7-8 day period without any measurable precipitation Thursday into next week with those spring temperatures returning. So there you go. It snows in April sometimes. Prince said that.